Hello there, people of the internet. Today, our episode that we're talking about in terms of stockpiling a certain kind of ammunition for an SHTF end of the world situation, we're going to be talking about 7.62 by 54 rimmed. There are plenty of people out there who stockpile this stuff for an end of the world situation. Now, this is an antiquated design. It's a rimmed cartridge. It's been around since 1891. However, it is still very, very much used in a modern standpoint. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the 7.62 by 51. Since it is a rimmed cartridge and it is a large cartridge, it is very much considered to be a full power rifle round. As a matter of fact, from a full length barrel, this stuff right here roughly has the same power equivalent as a 30-06. It's definitely a potent round. I would not recommend stockpiling 7.62 by 54 rimmed as a combat cartridge here in the United States. Here in the US, if you are stockpiling 7.62 by 54 rimmed, odds are it's going to be for a Mosin Nagant. Of course, there's PSLs and there's other rifles out there, but way more often than not, somebody's going to be getting this ammunition to run through their Mosin. Now, Mosins are very predominant here in the United States. They are absolutely everywhere. There were millions of them made. If you want to find a Mosin, you can go out and you can find yourself a Mosin. They're not quite as popular as some other platforms out there, but the odds of you coming across a Mosin to run with your 7.62 by 54 rimmed ammunition is actually pretty damn significant, just with the amount of these rifles that are in this country. Now, back whenever this ammunition was cheap, it definitely made way more sense to stockpile it than it does nowadays. You used to be able to pick up those 440 tins of 7.62 by 54 rimmed ammunition for like, hell, I got a bunch of them, like a lot of them for 40 bucks a piece. Whereas nowadays, 7.62 by 54 rimmed is going to cost you more around 65 to 70 cents a shot for like the cheap steel case stuff. Simply because of supply and demand. And at that price, since it's a full power rifle round, you're better off going with something like a 7.62 NATO rifle, simply because of the availability of platforms of 7.62 NATO. With 7.62 NATO, I mean, there are 7.62 by 54 rimmed automatic platforms out there. You do not want to run a bolt action rifle in SHTF end of the world situation if you're going to be using that as a combat rifle. I would take it over nothing. However, there's definitely better platforms out there. If you're going to get yourself like a PSL or something like that that runs 7.62 by 54 rimmed in a semi-automatic roll, that's I was going to say it's a good way to go, but it is a way to go if you feel like doing that. However, if you are going to spend that money on 7.62 by 54 rimmed, you may as well just go with 7.62 by 51. The power differences are absolutely negligible, but the amount of rifle availability in 7.62 by 51 dramatically outweighs the rifle availability in 7.62 by 54 rimmed. Here in the United States, with 7.62 by 51, you could get yourself like an AR-10 of all sorts of different varieties, or like an FAL, or you could get yourself a G3/PTR91. Like, there's options out there for 7.62 by 51 and of a modern style fighting rifle, like a modern style battle rifle. Whereas with the 7.62 by 54 rimmed, you get yourself a Mosin, or I think that there's a couple other bolt action rifles out there, but for the most part, you get yourself a Mosin, or you get yourself like a PSL/Dragunov style rifle chambered in 7.62 by 54 rimmed, and those are your options. That's what you got. And the PSL is pretty much, well, that series of rifle, that style of rifle, is pretty much just a larger version of the AK platform. So not a whole lot of rifle options with the 7.62 by 54 rimmed, and it's going to be dramatically more expensive to get yourself a PSL with ammunition than it would be to get yourself like a G3 or an M14 or an AR-10 or something like that. It's going to be, you know, you can pick up 2 good AR-10s for 1 PSL if we're talking about the price equivalents. Not only that, but magazines and parts availability and whatnot for the 7.62 by 51 platforms here in the United States going to be dramatically easier to find than your PSL rifle that you paid X amount of money for. So that being said, no, I would not recommend stockpiling 7.62 by 54 rimmed for an end-of-the-world SHTF rifle. You could get yourself some, like for example, I have myself a couple of rounds. Simply because in the event that the end of the world happens and, well, you got to make all of your rounds count, if you come across a Mosin Nagant, which there's a very good chance that you're going to come across a Mosin Nagant here in the United States, if you come across a Mosin Nagant, hey, guess what? Now you have yourself some ammunition for that rifle, so you don't just have this empty rifle that's going to be dead in the water. But still, do not think that I'm recommending using the Mosin Nagant in an end-of-the-world situation. I'm saying if you happen to find one or happen to have one, guess what? Now you have some ammunition for it. Do not use it as your primary rifle. Ow, but boy does it hit hard. 7.62 by 54 rimmed, like I said, is a full power round. It's definitely gonna smack the target downrange pretty goddamn hard. And if you get yourself something that has like a scope mount or something like that, I don't like, for the most part, collectors say don't sporterize a rifle, but for an end-of-the-world situation, if you're going to rock a bolt-action rifle, having an optic is a huge advantage on it. And, well, it's the end-of-the-world, collectability goes completely out the window. If you get yourself, if you get yourself an optic on your Mosin rifle, with that bolt-action rifle, it's still not going to be as accurate as like a modern production firearm, modern production rifle, but it's going to be accurate enough to be able to handle like most of the things it is that you're wanting to handle. It would make a good designated marksman rifle if you have yourself a crew, or it would make a good buddy rifle if a friend shows up that doesn't have a rifle. There's just not a whole lot of good options for the platforms that 7.62 by 54 rimmed would be running. If there were options, if you had like modern style fighting rifles like AR-10s and whatnot were regularly chambered in 7.62 by 54 rimmed, then it would be a different story. However, this is an antiquated cartridge from a fighting rifle from a previous time, almost, a century ago at this point. There is definitely a reason that we went to intermediate caliber cartridges and self-loading rifles. Whew, mama. So it's powerful, yes. It's available. You can definitely find 7.62 by 54 rimmed pretty regularly nowadays, at least right now. This is March of 2023. Who knows what's going to happen down the road. But you can find the ammo. However, most of the ammo you're going to find is going to be full metal jackets. Getting like soft points or specialty ammo for 7.62 by 54 rimmed is not necessarily something that you're going to be able to find regularly. If you find yourself brass case ammo that is reloadable, bear in mind that this stuff is a 311 or 312 diameter projectile. And here in the United States, 308 diameter projectiles are definitely way more common than those other kinds of calibers. So as a result, if you run these rifles with 308 diameter projectiles, just bear in mind that you are going to have diminished accuracy simply because the bullet is not going to engage the rifling as effectively as it would if you were using an appropriately sized bullet. So it's available, yes. It's not the cheapest, especially in comparison to some better options out there, and the platforms that you can find this stuff chambered in simply are not that great for a modern style SHTF situation. I would not recommend using stockpiling 7.62 by 54 rimmed for an SHTF situation. Use that money that you would spend on that rifle right there and that ammunition for getting yourself a better setup than what you would get with 7.62 by 54 rimmed. There is simply an antiquated design from antiquated rifles. It's powerful, it's capable. I mean, it could do the job in the event that you need it to do the job, but there are better platforms out there. 7.62 by 54 rimmed is definitely, I mean, like I said, it can be found. It's definitely popular. However, it's nowhere near the popularity of, say, 30-06 or 308 or something like that here in the United States. Other places in the world, maybe the popularity is up there, but here in the United States, it's not as popular. Then I've gone to several gun stores who, of course, have 308 and 30-06 on the shelves, which is an incredibly popular round here in the United States. However, many of these stores will not have 7.62 by 54 rimmed. And if they do, then they end up having just full metal jackets. Finding soft points or any kind of specialty ammunition is definitely a rarity whenever it comes to these rifles. Not impossible to find, but definitely more difficult to find. And whenever you do find this ammunition, you're going to end up paying a premium for that ammunition. I know specialty 7.62 by 54 rimmed oftentimes is over $1 a round. And if you're going to spend that much money on this antiquated cartridge that is running through a rifle that is probably, you know, from a previous generation's design, then you may as well spend less money on a better design like 7.62 by 51. That would be my recommendation if you're looking specifically to get ammunition to stockpile in order to, you know, go into the end of the world situation, the hypothetical end of the world situation that is playing out in our minds. Now, if you already have your go-to rifle and you already have a plenty of ammunition set up for it, and you already have all of the things that you need for that, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna get me a Mosin and a bunch of ammo to go with it, then by all means, you go ahead and you do that. It's your money, it's your ammo, it's your right as an American citizen to own these particular rifles and to be able to use them. However it is that to be able to use them if you decide to use these platforms as opposed to other ones. The beauty about the country we live in is if you want to go into the end of the world with a Mosin, by all means, you go ahead and you do that. However, for the amount of money that you're paying for this antiquated design, you could absolutely get better stuff that would do a much better job at the things that you're wanting to do with it. All right, well, I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I'm going to say, hey, folks, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below on the 7.62 by 54 rimmed. I'm sure somebody's going to have something to say about it because they love the cartridge, and by all means, if you want to go with that cartridge, you go ahead and you go with that cartridge. If you want to go with that platform, by all means, go with whatever platform it is that you're wanting. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below. Link to all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and go check that out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. With this modern production 7.62 by 54 rimmed ammunition being as expensive as it is, I simply cannot recommend it because you would spend less money on more effective, more modern, more capable stuff than you would spending money on 7.62 by 54 rimmed and those old antiquated designs. All right, I'm out of here before I ramble on anymore. I'll see you all in the next video. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.